Today we have an old school soak in Hot Springs National Park, explore the mountains surrounding Bathhouse Row, and get to know more about this unlikely and peculiar resort town in the middle of Arkansas. We were up at 6 a.m. in the campground, and after the usual breakfast, we packed up the tent, with the steak I managed to ruin, and were in the car before 8 o'clock. As we drove towards downtown Hot Springs, we kept seeing this tower. We didn't know what it was, but I wondered what the view would be like from the top of it. The town was not quite awake yet. There was little traffic as we moved through the outskirts. And the camping was fun. Spare a thought for the poor people who have to stay all night in some dingy little place called Roadway Inn. Central Avenue was a bit more alive, if only because of the stately buildings and the grand statues. And I'd heard that there was free parking downtown. We found it, but I highly doubted it was actually going to be free. Maybe it's free for the first half hour, but only on Saturdays in October, or something like that. But what choice did we have? Into the catacombs of unknown price we drove and parked. Buckstaff Bathhouse is the only one here where you can get a traditional old-style treatment using original antique equipment. We were, I think, the very first customers of the day. Women go to the first floor and men to the second. Of course, cameras aren't allowed, and mine weren't waterproof anyway, but photos from the museum in Fordyce Bathhouse can show what we got. Each of us paid $33. I disrobed in a locker room area. Behind a divider, I could hear the very loud and clear and very graphic conversation of two attendants discussing a rather friendly young lady one of them knew. I felt like I knew her pretty well too after listening to them. An attendant led me around to various contraptions. First I had a 20-minute jacuzzi bath while sipping some drinking water also from the town's hot springs. Then he had me sit in a sort of sink on the ground, known as a sitz bath, for 10 minutes. Alone, I gazed at the marble tiles and chrome fixtures and wooden doors, listening to the echoing drippings and whirring jets of water. After that, the attendant wrapped me in hot towels with a cold towel around my face and head, and there was also 2 minutes in a steam room. Finally, maybe my favorite was the needle shower. 1 minute in a little cubicle being sprayed by sharp little jets of very strong, fine water. The whole thing took a little over half an hour. I reclined for a while on a platform in the cooling room, and I got dressed and waited on the big balcony outside for Masayo. She had the same course as me, but for some reason she also got to go in the weird Ichabod Crane headless steam box thing. Despite the brochure's warnings, my blood sugar was fine and I felt super relaxed. There was no shower at the campground, so Buckstaff was perfect timing this morning. I sat and communed with the breeze and watched the people of Hot Springs walking back and forth. Masayo rejoined me, and both refreshed, we walked up and down Bathhouse Row. Each building is some mix of privately owned and regulated by the Park Service, and each has its own function. Ozark is also a cultural center. Lamar houses the gift shop, the Bathhouse Row Emporium, excuse me. Fordyce, as I mentioned yesterday, is the visitor center and museum. We'd actually been late and didn't get to see the entire museum yesterday, so we finished the tour today. And I'm glad we did. There was a lot to life here in the heyday of Hot Springs that we didn't know. After a short film about the park, we saw what customers back in the day really experienced. It wasn't just watery services like we'd had. It ran the gamut of full health rejuvenation. Imagine laying down and an attendant hooking you up to electro-massage machines like this. This one's even called Lightning, if you weren't nervous enough about being electrocuted already. There were all sorts of suspicious-looking devices, these complicated Rube Goldberg-looking things that reminded me of something you might get strapped into on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. They may or may not have helped visitors be invigorated, even if it was just a placebo effect. Like this honest display puts it, a lot of this was showmanship and gadgets. But there was even more to it. Clients could also work out in the attached gymnasium, with its leather loops, wooden dumbbells, and stitched-together punching bags. Best of all, maybe, was afterwards. Guests would enter a plush parlor. Genders could mix here, listening to music, playing billiards or card games, reading, catching up on their correspondence, and just generally living it up. In the early 1900s, a weekend in Hot Springs was one great way to totally relax the shit out of your ass. Oh, I'm sorry. Tell those attendants at Buckstaff, too. Hot Springs, Arkansas was where Bill Clinton grew up and went to high school. The town honors him with this sign, although someone seems to have taken exception to it. Otherwise, Hot Springs keeps reminding you that it's all about the water. Fountains mark the ends of Bathhouse Row, and people are free to come sample the free water pouring forth from various locations around town. This display honors James Carey, the first park ranger in the U.S. who ever died in the line of duty. He was killed chasing bootleggers in 1927, and no one was ever convicted. Lunch was at a cafe in Quapaw Bathhouse, which I'm probably mispronouncing, and which incidentally offers modern spa treatments with up-to-date facilities. And lunch was great, a simple light meal perfect for after a soak and a stroll. And it turned out, wonder of wonders, the parking really was free. I don't know why, but we got out of there before someone came to their senses. And we headed out to explore Hot Springs Mountain just behind Bathhouse Row. The drive up was probably the curviest road on the entire trip so far. Here's a time lapse, and look away if you get motion sickness. At the very top is that tower we'd seen in the morning. It's a quick elevator ride, 216 feet up to the top. The views from way up here were as dramatic as I'd hoped. You really get a sense of the area, how Hot Springs is laid out, and why it's so much fun driving around the Ouachita Mountains. There are more displays here too. Bill Clinton in high school and meeting JFK, plus information about Mountain Valley mineral water, which is still at it today. We walked all the way down the bright red stairs and drove back to town, stopping at a place to fill up our various water containers. It tasted normal, kind of like any water, but it certainly felt very healthy to be drinking it. On the other side of downtown is West Mountain Drive, with more pleasant little roads and sudden, far-reaching views. As we drove around, it became clear that it was too late to think about leaving town today. So we decided to stay in Hot Springs another night, and headed through some of the non-touristy back streets to see more about life in Hot Springs. The town has about 38,000 people and has been notable for reasons beyond the hot springs. For example, in 1918, Babe Ruth, then a pitcher, was playing a baseball game in town one day. He had to fill in at first base at the last minute and thus be a batter. He ended up hitting 2 mammoth home runs, which were then unusual in baseball. After that game, he focused on hitting and went on to, of course, change baseball strategy forever. Babe himself loved the hot springs and the notorious gambling spots in town. Also, Billy Bob Thornton was born and raised in Hot Springs. He, by the way, has a phobia of antique furniture, so you probably won't run into him in the steam box at Buckstaff. We managed to find a great room at a luxurious palace called Roadway Inn, where the friendly lady at the front desk recommended a nearby Vietnamese restaurant for dinner. Well, what can you do when you're deep inside Arkansas looking for local cuisine? You follow the locals' advice. And the restaurant was great. I had the broken rice. And ordered something called Thai tea, which turned out not to be tea like I think of it, but some huge sugary drink. I took a big insulin shot for it all, but still ended up with my only high blood sugar of the day, unsurprisingly. But hey, it was a fantastic day. And the water wasn't even over. We fell asleep to the sound of a huge, violent thunderstorm outside. Glad we camped last night and not tonight. Cheers, Hot Springs! You've been great. Tomorrow we leave Hot Springs and Arkansas west into Oklahoma for a night of camping beside Lake of the Arbuckles. An evening of friendly neighbors, noisy neighbors, and excellent stargazing.